You're listening to the mother of all talk shows with me, George Galloway, on WBAI, broadcasting to New York and the tri-state area.
People of America, this is the President of the United States. You are listening to George Galloway and the mother of all talk shows. George is a Scotsman, and like me, an Irishman. Enjoy.
Welcome and good morning to the mother of all talk shows with me, George Galloway, coming to you from foggy London town. A big up to all my friends listening to WBAI, especially my friend Flutra, who's listening in her car, looking for a job like so many people in the United States of America. And that's obviously going to be one of the issues that we are discussing this morning, because the economic situation on both sides of the Atlantic and throughout the European Union, and especially inside the Eurozone, continues to teeter on the brink of collapse. The British government, introducing its autumn statement in the House of Commons yesterday, told us that the recession that we're in is going to last far longer and be far deeper than even they had told us, and that the policies that they have been following these last 18 months or so have actually taken us into a far greater level of indebtedness, all the while laying off almost 1 million workers in the public sector. And if London's fog-bound this morning, it's also strike-bound. 3 million public sector workers in the United Kingdom have downed tools and walked out of their workplaces today in protest at the government's attempt to make them pay for the crisis of an economic system which, even in the best of times, never did very much for them, and for economic and policy failures which equally had nothing to do with them. In particular, the determination of the British government to make people work far longer, pay into their pension pots far more, and then receive far less when they actually do get to retire, 67, then 69. Imagine public sector workers at 69. Imagine an ambulance worker coming in to carry off when you've had a heart attack, God forbid, aged 69. Imagine a school teacher aged 69. Well, that's the prospect facing the workforce in Britain. But 3 million workers of all kinds have effectively shut the country insofar as the airports are simply impassable. And if you were thinking of flying to London today, don't bother. Go to Paris instead, because that's where you'll probably be diverted. I don't suppose it's much better on your side of the Atlantic, but I stand ready to be corrected. This week I was in Beirut, in Lebanon, at an important event opposing foreign intervention in the events in Syria, calling for dialogue and negotiation as a means of going forward from the political crisis in which the Syrian Arab Republic finds itself, being lectured to by potentates in the Persian Gulf who don't have any freedom or democracy themselves about the need to grant freedom and democracy to the Syrian people. Must be very hard to bear. The Syrian opposition, which is comprised of many different trends, but included amongst them are the trends loyal to former grisly mass killers in the Syrian regime. I'm thinking of, for example, Mr. Rifat al-Assad, now being paraded around the Western media as if he was a Democrat, when in fact he's the man responsible for the mass murder of 30,000 Syrians in 1982 in the city of Hama. Or the former Vice President Khaddam, who defected to France a couple of years ago, taking with him $7 billion of the Syrian people's money. And a variety of Salafist organizations, you know the kind, the people who were sodomizing 69-year-old Colonel Gaddafi with a knife just before they cold-bloodedly killed him, all the while chanting the name of God. Well, we're determined, some of us, that Syria should not enter that vortex, should not sink to that bottom, and so we are opposing this attempt to intervene on what is and should be internal Syrian affairs. That's not to say we support the regime in Damascus. Personally, I never have. You may or may not have a point of view on these matters. If you do, 212-209 2900. Those are the numbers to call, 212-209-2900. Aoife, do we have a first call?
Yes, you have Fred from Jersey on the line.
Go ahead, Fred.
Good morning, Mr. Galloway. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, brother. Good to hear from you. Go ahead.
It's very sad what's happening in London with the pensions.
People are not going to be robbed by their own government without standing up and fighting back.
Yeah, well, it's a better pension than living in Havana, Cuba, where you belong, you Stalin commie.
This man comes up, you see, with a different name every week. But one thing always remains the same. The caliber, the standard of his intellectual discourse. You know, there he was, on the line with me. He could have said anything. He could have made any argument. He could have reached the great audience that we're building up for this show, but he prefers the equivalent of writing on the wall of a public toilet or the subway, just a kind of ignorant slogan, and then run away. So Fred has fled. So, Aoife, do we have a second call?
Yeah, it's Harry from the East Village.
Go ahead, Harry.
Good morning, George. I just heard this knucklehead that called you. This is the type of people in this country that back silly ideas like, taking arms against Syria. I want to ask you a specific question. Concerning Iran, after what happened with the British Embassy being attacked and some of their properties burnt and everything, do you think this is a prelude to the West and Israel getting involved with? This is the excuse for them to start a war with?
I'll tell you what, Harry. I think they're already involved. I think that Britain and America have special forces inside Iran.
Really?
I think that Britain and America are supporting sectarian and separatist forces inside Iran. I think the explosion at the arms depot a couple of weeks ago and the explosion, which I haven't really caught up with yet because I've been away,
I think
at the Iranian nuclear facility just a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
I think these are all the work of Israeli or other special forces and militia being led and organized by these special forces.
Yeah.
The steadily escalating sanctions being taken against Iran, unilaterally in the case of the British on the relationship to the Iranian Central Bank just last week. They're all part of... basically they're walking us down the road to a war with Iran, just as they walked us down the road to a war with Iraq.
Exactly.
But they're making a very, very big mistake, Harry, because unlike Iraq, Iran has the ability to strike them back.
Oh, yes.
And will do so with devastating results, I predict.
Oh, I believe it. I mean, they just test fired some new missiles that could reach Southern Europe, could reach Israel. So I don't know. I don't know if the people in the power. I don't know what they think is going to happen. Are they just going to bomb this reactor and leave and not expect any type of retaliation? And the same thing with Syria. I mean, these are two countries that the West is sticking their noses in. Look, I don't agree with what's happening in Syria. I think it's atrocious that they're killing their own people. But to start gearing up for some type of intervention, because I know they're talking about it. So I think these are two fronts that we're going to be fighting on, besides all the other problems in Africa and the Mideast that the West is dealing in. I mean, this just seems like a prelude to, I don't know, it's to madness. I mean,
then we appear to be led by madmen.
Yes.
But perhaps the real madmen are ourselves, because we seem unable to stop our governments marching us into war after war after war, even when our economies are on the floor.
Exactly. No, it's very sad that it's a state of things. I just heard, I listened to Amy Goodman in the morning, Democracy Now!, and the embassy in Iraq, they have 15,000 people. It's the largest embassy in the world, and the State Department has hired military-type contractors for security. They have their own armed air force. I think that they're doing this because the Iraqis are not going to give American soldiers a free hand and not have any legal repercussions. So, this helps Obama because he gets on TV, well, I kept my promise. But meanwhile, they have 15,000 people in a large embassy. I tell you, I wait for your station, your program all week so I could air this to somebody with, some intelligence because...
Thanks, Harry. I really appreciate that. Let me tell you that 15,000 or 150,000 wouldn't be enough for the United States to hold on to its position in Iraq, which has now ended. By the end of this year, the United States Armed Forces will have to be out of the country.
Yeah.
And as a direct consequence, and I could have told them this, indeed I did tell them this, as a result of destroying the Arab power of Iraq, they made the Iranian power in Iraq fantastically more powerful.
Exactly.
So you now have an axis of Iran, Iraq, and Syria, and Hezbollah in Lebanon. And this axis is a very tough nut to crack. And if you strike it, you'll find that it has the means to fight back, and will.
I'm sure it has some very big teeth.
Thanks for that, Harry.
Thank
Great
you,
call,
George.
my friend.
I'll talk to you next week.
Do we have a third caller?
Yes, you do. You have Nick from Seacliff.
Nick, welcome to the show, my friend.
Good morning, George. Always a pleasure to speak to you. I'm the retired police sergeant. I've spoken to you in the past.
Excellent, Nick. Yes, I always look forward to hearing from you. Go ahead.
Sir, how are you?
Yeah, not bad.
We are in troubled times. The song Black Sabbath wrote years ago, War Pigs. If anyone hasn't listened to it, that's from my generation. I'm 58. Please listen to it because it's come true. We want to be in a perpetual...
I'm not a big Black Sabbath fan, but I'll definitely listen to it just for you.
Please, because we are in now a perpetual state of war and fake terrorism. This is the biggest fraud perpetrated on the United States and its people. Okay? And I don't even want to get into the orchestrators of this. I can do that privately in an email to you.
Yeah, do that, yeah. Anybody that wants to write to me, write to office@georgegalloway.com.
I will indeed, sir. Now, the other pressing problem is this bill that's been sponsored by John McCain and Carl Levin in the Senate that want to now basically say that Americans can be deemed enemy combatants. They can be put into Gitmo-type facilities that you don't need any probable cause, no habeas corpus. This is insane. I come from a military and police family that served since World War I. Everyone else who didn't serve in the Army went into the police, FBI, customs, etc. And for what reason? For what? To what end? What did I serve 27 years for?
Yeah. Not to pave the way to a kind of dictatorship, that's for sure, Nick.
I am not going to live under fascism. I can tell you that right now. It's not going to happen in my world. No way. I'm fighting for my grandchildren. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old grandchildren that I'm fighting for. Not me. I'm fighting for them.
Great call, Nick. Thanks for that. Always a pleasure to hear from you. Aoife, do we have a fourth?
Yes, you do. You have Ken right here from New York City.
Ken, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, George.
Go ahead, son.
I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Everybody's been really nice to you this morning, but I know as a Scotsman, you're not going to back down from a fight, right?
No, not at all. No.
All right, good. First of all, as you know, Al-Qaeda's own website has posted a warning to Ahmadinejad and everyone on the left, stop claiming it was an inside job, taking total responsibility on the Al-Qaeda website. Number two, I would just like to say I have friends inside Iran right now who have been in Iraq, saw that they had a 10% higher voter turnout percentage of the population than we had in the U.S. election, and wanted help. The Green Party was taken out and hung in the streets. We had a diffident president who did not push the Arab Spring that was started by Bush, that brought them a higher election turnout than our own election had, and because of quislings on the left like yourself, sir, who, because as a Scotsman, you hate Britain and you helped to turn it into an Islamic republic, and anyone can go on YouTube and see the Muslims holding signs in the street saying, freedom go to hell. So it's you liberals who are going to have the most to pay when the job is done, and it is almost done. Go look at Britain's stand today. What a disgrace. I wouldn't wish that on my own enemy, and unfortunately you did, sir. You helped to do. Enoch Powell was so right. Enoch Powell. Anyone listening to my voice, go YouTube Enoch Powell. He foresaw all of this.
Well, let me stop you there because I think there are men in white coats waiting for you, ready to escort you back to the lunatic asylum from which you've.
One thing, George, that I said that was incorrect.
Can you fade him down, Ife? Because I don't allow racism on this show, and WBAI doesn't allow, I think, racism on its airwaves. And the men in white coats won't be kept waiting for Ken. The Enoch Powell to whom he refers is the man who regarded in his political lifetime black people as inferior, black people as grinning pickaninnies, that's the phrase that he used, accusing black people of pushing excrement through the letterboxes of frightened old ladies, the man who said that England was going to be swamped by people of color. In other words, the kind of raving, racist lunatic that Ken himself obviously is. The Islamic Republic of Britain that he just described to you is a country of 70 million people with 1.3 million Muslims. That means that 68.7 million people in Britain are not Muslims. 1.3 million are. Yet Ken thinks we're an Islamic republic. He obviously hasn't looked at the lingerie adverts on the side of all the London buses, which I sometimes am forced to look at. The idea that this country awash with booze, with drugs, with single-parent families, with teenage pregnancies, with record rates of sexually transmitted diseases, is an Islamic republic, is, I'm afraid, just a figment of Ken's fevered imagination. But let me deal with this Scotsman lark, notwithstanding the funny jokes that we've put into President Obama's voice in the stings that you hear throughout this story. Let me tell you that I have no nationality. My country is the future. I believe in the future as the country for all of us. My flag is red. It's not Scottish. It's not British. It's not any other country. I have far more in common with my friends in New York who think like me, who live lives like me, than I do with 90% of the people in this country with whom I share a common passport. So I'm struggling not for an Islamic republic in Britain, not to destroy Britain because I'm Scottish. These are infantilized ideas of people who can't see beyond the edge of their nose. I'm an advocate of Dr. Johnson's great riposte that patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel. Well, this is the mother of all talk shows. This is George Galloway on WBAI.
Here he is, comrades. George Galloway and the mother of all talk shows, guaranteed to destroy any weapons of mass deception.
Well, that's me, but with your help. Anyway, the good thing about Fred, the toilet wall painter, and the last guy, Ken, I think it was, who was just taken off back to secure Ward 9, is that it does provide a bit of coursing through my veins, which is always good, and good for you too. Aoife, do we have a fifth call?
Yes, you have KJ from Queens.
KJ in Queens. Welcome, my friend.
Good morning, and welcome to you as well, and my good friend Aoife there. I got to tell you, I joined Nick this morning and a lot of the prior callers. Here's the Senate of the United States debating a question of incarcerating without charges American citizens or anyone else on this shores. Aren't they supposed to uphold the Constitution of the United States? They believe they're serving some other greater interest, and I dare say the Pentagon is marching on with the neocons and Barack as well, right into the intent to destroy the seven nations that they plan to under what Dick Clark called their intent to regime change most of the Middle East. And I believe that's in order to maintain America's hegemony. But I dare say we are at risk of our own internment, not by terrorists, but by our own elected officials and those who wish to maintain the status quo. And I just wanted to get your thoughts. And I did hear something about the pension plan, and it's consistent with what's going on, the devaluation of the currency, the forcing of sovereign nations to take on debt, these default assets of derivatives and so forth that are valued at 700 to 1.5 trillion. No, I'm sorry, 1,500 trillion, a gazillion dollars in possible over-leveraged debt. And that's why these banks were downgraded. But for the most part, they don't know what that will mean. And that's the impending financial crisis that no one's really getting.
That would be the mother of all crisis, wouldn't it, KJ?
Absolutely. And and then if they can't, the people take to the street, whether it's Britain, Greece, Italy, or what have you, they're going to have to do something. The question is, will we let them? So, Nick, my brother in Long Island, former military police, I join you. I join all those who believe in justice to stand up and do not allow them to take away our freedoms.
Fantastic. I couldn't improve on that, KJ. I won't try to. Thanks very much for the call, as always. Ife, give us my sixth.
Yes, you have Clarence from Brooklyn.
Clarence in Brooklyn, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, Brother Galloway, I've always admired you. When I first heard you take on those no-good bastards in Congress, when you stood tall and told them off. Oh, yes.
That was a good day. By the grace of God, that was my best day so far.
I wanted to inform you of a congressman that has been forgotten. I dare say he was the first and last congressman Harlem ever had who stood tall even before there was a Congressional Black Caucus. His name was the late, great Adam Clayton Powell, Jr.
Oh, yes.
Who, the book, if you can get it through the Barnes & Noble customer service desk, because it's out of circulation, the book is called King of the Cats by Will Haggard. This book gives you just about all of the nuances and the essence of the man. But what it misses out on is the fact that Adam, I believe, suffered foul play because he was strongly supportive of Black Power. He was ganged up on his members of Congress on charges that were not anything other than trying to take him out because he was too black, too strong for a man who could pass for a white man. He had very...
Well, they don't like them. They don't like them too black and too strong, Clarence, as you know. They can deal with a little shade of blackness and a little shade of powerfulness, but not too black and not too powerful. Can I ask you something? Sure. Is there any understanding amongst the black political class in America what's happening to black people in revolutionary Libya? The people that your government and mine put in power are routinely victimizing black people and have been involved in acts of mass murder against them, even lynchings, literally from trees, just like the South that Billie Holiday who sang about the strange fruit twisting in the summer breeze. Do people know about that in America?
Well, bless your heart for bringing up that issue, because you see, these politicians, as my leader of the United African Movement, he calls them not elected officials, he called them selected officials. And they do not dare rock the boat. Many of them are definitely on remote control. They please the plantation overseer. Well, these are plantation overseers. They please their bosses who don't like his people or her people that they're supposed to be representing. I call them misrepresenting. They did it. The Congressional Black Caucus alone should have long ago sounded the trumpet, not only denounced the so-called rebels in Libya, but to show us where they buried those bodies in mass graves, I'm sure, or threw them through the sharks, fed them through the sharks. The idea that their families in these neighboring African nations cannot bury their loved ones a decent burial, because probably don't know where their loved ones were taken to be buried. But the idea is that
if they were buried, Clarence, they were probably left to rot by the side of the road. Yeah. But it just seems extraordinary to me that a black president in the United States and all these black senators and congressmen and all these prominent black people in American society, I may have missed it because I'm thousands of miles away, but I haven't myself seen a single word from any of them about the reign of terror against black people in Libya.
Listen, believe me, sir, these so-called representatives in this part of the diaspora have sold their soul, and they are only concerned about the Benjamins and gaining seniority, but they curry favors for the enemy of my people. They are sellouts. My leader, Attorney Automatics, he lost his license when he broke no law, but he was not going to sell out one of the most well-known black leaders here in this country, Reverend Al Sharpton. He represented Reverend Sharpton when no attorney would take Reverend Sharpton's case. Sharpton was found not guilty on all 67 counts when he was told by then Judge Richard Brown, who's now DA of Queens County, told him, if you don't hand over Sharpton, I'll see that your license will never be returned. We don't have leadership like Automatics that would put their career on the line for justice and liberation's sake. So you have now there's liberation going on in Libya. Oh, by the way, the so-called freedom fighters put graffiti on the walls where the blacks was ousted from the living quarters saying no more black skin in Libya. Imagine that.
Yeah, that's a slogan. That's a very, very common slogan now in revolutionary Libya, even though, of course, because of where Libya is, a huge number of Libyan citizens have black skins. Yeah. Never mind the workers who came there in good faith to earn a living to send home to their families.
That's right.
Working, the hewers of wood, the drawers of water, the toilers who gave their sweat to create the kind of conditions that existed in Libya and are being victimized, are either cowering in camps or have been lynched and killed.
Don't forget that Muammar Gaddafi wrote the book called The Little Green Book by Colonel Muammar Gaddafi. And in that book, there's a chapter that's titled, It's the Black Man's Turn. And I believe that the half has not been told as to why France wanted to punish Gaddafi because he wouldn't go along with the program to have his currency changed to EU. That was the pressure that he was under because France was in Libya months before the rebels, so-called rebels, broke out in the streets. Look what's going on in Syria, Yemen, and Bahrain, especially in Syria. This man kills at random these people with using army tanks, all kinds of machinery to kill the people. There's no concern about NATO bombing.
Just watch this space, my friend. It will happen in due course, I'm afraid to say. That won't make Syria any better any more than it's made Libya any better.
You are like fresh water when a man has been in the desert looking for a way to survive. You are like fresh water.
Thank you. God bless you, Clarence. Thanks for that call. Ife, do we have a seventh call?
Yes, actually you have Brian from Long Island.
Brian in Long Island, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks, George. I've admired your courage and your work for years. I saw you on a documentary the other night, and I was very late at night. It was an excellent exchange. If you could just mention that, if you happen to know.
Which one was that, Brian?
Oh, it's a recent one, and I wish I could remember the name of it. You were commenting with a BAI listener, and it was about the war on the Muslims.
I didn't see that, but any question you've got, I'm ready to answer if I can.
Okay. Yeah, I thought next call was very, very important, and the other people as well. This bill is surreal, and I don't know the number of it. And I just wanted to ask you, on a global level, this seems to be on purpose, very much on purpose. When you destroy banking systems, they're spraying the skies all over NATO nations. There are false flag things going on all over the world. These are not conspiracy theories anymore, in my opinion. They're conspiracies. And when
there are conspiracies, of course, but it's a big mistake to imagine everything's a conspiracy. Some things are just cock-ups. I think it's important not to imbue those who lead us with superhuman qualities that can plan everything and execute everything, and it all goes to plan. Egypt, for example, is voting today in the elections. The Muslim Brotherhood have won thumping victory in the results so far, 40% of the votes cast. And guess who's second in the elections? The more extreme Islamist groups called Salafists. They're second, and the Muslim Brotherhood are first. Trust me, that's not what Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama had in mind for Egypt. It's not what Israel wants in Egypt. So there can be conspiracies, but they don't always work out, Brian.
Oh, that's true. I just wanted to say one thing. I respectfully disagree. I think if it's not a conspiracy, it's an anomaly at this point. And I don't think everything is, but I think a lot of them are at large levels. And
well, I think that the banking crisis is a result of the ineluctable toing and froing of capitalist economics. I think that it is a system that was designed for bankruptcy, waiting for bankruptcy. Marx wrote about that as long ago as 1848 in the manifesto. He predicted exactly what's happening now. And 150 years later, 160, it's coming to pass. I don't think there was a conspiracy to bring down the banks. I think that the banks and the economic collapse ineluctably flows from the contradictions within the capitalist system itself. That's why I'm a man of the left. Brian, thanks for the call.
Thank you.
Do we have an eighth?
Yes, you do. You have Helen. Helen from, where's she from? Flushing, Queens.
Excellent. We mustn't have all male radio shows. Helen, you're especially welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to say, given the ineptitude of this so-called black president, I'm an African American, and could it possibly, or is this a projection of my own fantasies, could he possibly be leading us into another world war?
I don't think so, but what we'll have is war throughout the world, which is not all that different. If they attack Iran, Iran will answer, first of all, in Iraq, where it is immeasurably more powerful than it was before, thanks to the war that we waged and the destruction that we caused. They will answer in the Persian Gulf, where most of the oil in the world has to flow through. They will answer against Israel with the weaponry that they have, and we're not entirely sure what that weaponry is, but we may soon find out. And their friends will answer in the Levant and elsewhere around the world. So we will have war throughout the world. It just won't be able to be characterized as world war in the sense of, you know, the documentaries we watch on the History Channel. A different kind of war, an asymmetrical war, a war where what you've got to look out for is not an enemy submarine, but an enemy with a bomb in the back of his car in Times Square or in Piccadilly Circus in London. That's the madness that our leaders are leading us into, where innocent people will be sliced apart and killed on both sides of this war throughout the world.
Right. One other question. All of the places that Barack Obama and the government have instigated these wars, they all seem to have a great deal of oil. Is there any connection?
Yes, I'm assuming you're being ironic because, of course, that is very much a part of it. It's not the only part of it, maybe not even the most important part of it. After all, Saddam was selling his oil to the West. Gaddafi was not just selling his oil to the West, he was allowing the West to come in and look for it as a private swashbuckling free enterprise buccaneers. So it's part of it, but it's not all of it. These wars are for oil, yes, they're for Israel, yes, but essentially they are to terrify the world with Western military power. And the weaker our soft power becomes, the harder we seem to think our hard power has to look. Absolutely. Because the real confrontation, Helen, is the one that's down the line, the confrontation with China and with Russia and with India and Brazil and South Africa, the emerging countries that are going to be hegemonic in the world, perhaps as soon as 20 years from now. And this is all about positioning for this global confrontation that lies ahead. The project for the new American century isn't going very well, despite the wars and despite the killings that our countries are carrying out. Helen, thanks for that call. We mustn't have all-male radio shows. I never allow them. So if you're a female listener, please call us on 212-209-2900. This is George Galloway. This is the mother of all talk shows.
Fighting the golden flakes of change with the milk of human kindness. This is the mother of all talk shows, and George Galloway.
Mr. President, that made no sense whatsoever.
I know. That's why I said it.
how prescient that sting was when I made it, about 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago. Amazing. Aoife, without whom there can be no show, do we have a ninth caller?
Yes, you have Rose Ellen from Queens as well.
Excellent. Rose Ellen, very nice to hear from you. Go ahead, please.
Hi. I just want to say I think we really should intervene in Syria because you have the people themselves have risen up against a dictator, and they're being killed every single day. And for us to just stand back and just watch people being tortured and killed every single day, how can
what sort of intervention did you have in mind, Rose Ellen?
I really don't know. I'm not a military specialist, but we have to do something.
Well, a bit like the intervention in Libya?
Well, to tell the truth, I did support that only because the people themselves rose up. Unlike Iraq, unlike Afghanistan, unlike Pakistan, we already have troops there, unfortunately, in Iraq, Afghanistan, and, all in the name of human rights.
Let me ask you, I want to explore this with you for the benefit of both of us and also everybody listening. How many people need to rise up before they're called the people rising up? Have you any idea of the breakdown, for example, inside Syria, of support for the regime and opposition to the regime?
I don't have the exact breakdown, but
okay, but isn't that important, Rose Ellen?
It's not that important.
Well, let me ask you then. Let me put it in an American context. If 100,000 American people rose up with weapons against the U.S. government, would you expect the U.S. government to militarily crush this armed revolt? Would you expect foreign countries to bomb America in protest to try and stop the U.S. government from dealing with this armed revolt against their government and against their state? Of course, the answer to both of those questions... Well, you laugh, you see, but that's precisely what you're advocating in this case. You have no idea, as you've just admitted, how many Syrians have risen up against their government and how many Syrians support their government. What you do know, and I know, is there's a civil war in Syria. And joining in other people's civil wars is generally not a good idea, Rose Ellen. It generally leads to everything becoming worse.
I don't believe this is a civil war. I believe
What is it then?
It's the government, the dictatorship cracking down on the people out in the streets.
But you've just admitted when I asked you, Rose Ellen, when I asked you how many Syrians support their regime, you told me you had no idea.
Well,
well, unfortunately for you, I do have an idea.
How many?
There are 18 sects, nationalities, confessions in Syria. It's the most complex society in the region. 18 Arabs, Kurds, Druze, Christians, Jews, Muslims, Sunnis, Muslim Shia, Muslim Alawiyin. There are 18 in total.
That's not what
different
this is
sects.
about.
Hold on. I'm explaining something to you because you've admitted you really don't know anything about the country that you're calling for us to intervene on.
Actually,
no, it's very important. I need to educate you. I need to educate you about this.
Go ahead.
Now, there are hundreds of thousands of opponents of the Syrian regime, maybe millions, maybe. But there are certainly tens of thousands of them armed and now at war with the Syrian regime. They have tanks, they have artillery, they have explosives, they have small arms. It's clear. You could just go to YouTube and you'll see it. You'll see them waving their rifles and chanting Allahu Akbar. I don't know if that's a slogan of yours, if you like that slogan, but it's omnipresent on the streets of Syria with these so-called revolutionaries. Now,
that's
there
like
are 26... Hold on. There are 26 million people in Syria. If you go to YouTube, you'll see demonstrations in support of their regime, also of many hundreds of thousands. Indeed, their demonstrations are vastly greater than the demonstrations that the opposition are able to muster. So, we have to conclude that where hundreds of thousands of people, maybe millions, are against their regime and are increasingly armed from outside, that you have a civil war between the supporters of the regime and the opponents of the regime. Now, I'm putting it to you, who gave the United States of America, bankrupt as it is, who gave Britain, bankrupt as it is, the duty, the responsibility to travel thousands of miles to get involved in somebody else's civil war?
Well, my answer is the fact that we have troops in that area, number one. Number two, the fact that...
You don't have troops in that area.
We have in that, we have them in Iraq, we have them in Pakistan, we have them in Afghanistan.
Listen, Rosellen.
What?
First of all, you don't have them in Pakistan.
No, you don't,
Secondly, Pakistan is as far from Syria as New York City.
Well,
so you really have to get a handle on the region, on the complexities, on where we have troops and where we don't, before you start coming on the radio, calling for other people's countries to be bombed. Are you a Salafist yourself, Rosellen?
They're mowing people down every single day.
Are you a big Islamist supporter yourself?
I'm a Catholic myself, but I support the Muslims.
You're a Catholic.
I support the Muslims.
You're a Catholic. Oh, Rosellen, you're a Catholic.
But I'm
So you haven't paid any attention to the statements of the Catholic hierarchy in Syria, have you?
Well, my father is Syrian, Catholic Syrian.
Well, if you're a Catholic of Syrian background, the best advice I can give you is to go and study the statements of the Christian leadership in Syria about these events. That's what you need to do. Or do you know better? Do you know better in New York?
People are being mowed down every single day. People are being mowed down every single day. That's what I know. And it's a horrendous crime against humanity. And we have an obligation to protect people from being mowed down wherever we can.
Rosellen, people are being mowed down on both sides in a civil war. You're not listening to what I'm saying.
It's not a civil war.
But listen to me. If you're a Catholic,
it's a civil war. The right wing is telling you it's a civil war. It's a dictatorship.
Rosellen,
yes.
In the name of God, I beg you to listen to what I'm about to say to you.
Yes.
If you're a Catholic, read what the Catholic Church in Syria has to say about these events. Don't pretend that in New York, where you think Pakistan is next to Syria, that you know better than the priests, than the bishops, than the archbishops, than the cardinals in Syria, because you don't. You can't. And anyone listening to this knows already that you are a classic example of a little knowledge being dangerous. You're a very dangerous woman, Rosellen, and I bid you good morning. Ife, do we have a 10th call?
Yes, you do. You have Arthur from Queens.
Arthur in Queens. Welcome, Arthur.
Yes, Mr. Galloway, I think you're a saint, a Shambhala warrior. I think you're really academic and you have tremendous education and you're fighting the good fight. But I just want to bring out one little point of order in all your knowledge, is that when you call President Obama a black man, you're already starting from a amygdala hijacking, which is he's a biracial man. And
fair enough, yeah.
That's all I'd like to say. If you
fair enough, except this, Arthur. For the racists, he's a black man, all right.
No.
Doesn't matter what level of pigmentation or how mixed the background. If he'd lived during the color bar, he wouldn't have been able to take a pee at the same urinal as me.
Mr. Galloway, that was not the context you referred him to. You really just go over your words.
Yeah, no, I take your point. I take your point, Arthur.
Call him a white man next time, but really biracial would be fair to my granddaughter.
All right, my friend.
Thanks
for that correction. Appreciate that. Ife, do we have an 11th?
Yes, you do. You have Norman from Forest Hills.
Norman, welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate what you're doing on the air. Love listening in. This Monday, I was quite alarmed at hearing about this pathetic piece of legislation that Senator McCain.
Yeah, I didn't know about that, but a lot of people are upset about it on the show today.
Yeah, 1867.
Is this going to pass, Norman?
Well, it's being kind of talked about right now, and I'm trying to get all the information myself. it's quite alarming what some of the like the Legal Aid Society is saying, and about Americans being able, the military being able to take Americans and detain them without charge.
Yeah,
across
in Guantanamo type
exactly
legal limbo.
Yeah, it's like almost like sounds like martial law. It's very interesting. I downloaded the bill. I was reading through the sections that the critics point out, sections 10, 31, and 32, and they do have two little clauses that say the requirement to detain a person in military custody under this section does not extend to citizens of the United States, and also a similar one pertaining to resident aliens, legal residents, aliens. So I'm a little confused because as to how much this bill will, how far this bill will go if it is passed. I mean,
well, we better all study it and get up to speed on it, myself included, because it looks like it's going to be a shark in the water for some time. Norman, thanks very much for that call, brother.
Sure.
Ife, give me the 12th, please.
Yes, you have Richard from Long Beach, California.
My goodness, Richard in California. Excellent. I didn't know our remit reached that far. Go ahead.
It's the power of the Internet, Mr. Galloway. Good morning,
Fabulous,
sir. How are you?
Fabulous. Yes, I'm good, and the better for hearing from you in the Sunshine State.
Sir, you're a brave man. I have a tough question to throw at you, and I hope you can give me a good answer for it. There was a crazy event that had come down in Penn State, the university town with the supposed charges against a man for pedophilia. There have been a recent spate of these, the Holly Grigg story, the Marc Dutroux in Belgium. Sir, I'm asking you as a person who has access around the world, is there a pedophile ring that is compromising politicians on this planet?
Well, I've got no evidence that there is one that's compromising politicians, but there's certainly plenty of pedophile rings in all countries, and no doubt spanning all kinds of borders. It is the most wicked and most evil of phenomenon, and I hope that the police are on top of it, and I hope that politicians, where they are complicit in it, and some have been, not just the ones you mentioned, the places you mentioned. I don't know if the Holly Gregg story fits into that pattern, but the Kincora Boys' Home in the north of Ireland in the 1980s very definitely did seem to involve people in the political class. I don't think that the political class is any different from any other walk of life. It contains the good, the bad, and the ugly. It doesn't get much uglier than pedophilia. Richard, thanks for the call. This is the mother of all talk shows, Ife.
Yes, you have, I lost my place. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's my fault. I perhaps too abruptly.
You have Lincoln.
Dealt you this hand.
Lincoln from Mount Vernon.
Lincoln, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, welcome. Okay, again, I'm talking with you. I think it's a little bit tricky, the whole explosion in Syria, Iraq, Libya, and we spoke about this before. I think it's an old story that's being replayed, and it's being replayed by, Interpol, CIA, etc. It was recently disclosed that the USA had planned to overthrow and destabilize 7 governments, of which Iraq, Libya, and Syria were among them. And I think what we see happening, yes, indeed, the people are disgruntled with the government in Syria, but I don't think that they would have risen up the way they did if they were not instigated by the CIA.
I think they were taking advantage of a situation that suddenly broke out in the spring of this year, and which will continue for many springs to come, where revolution was in the air, the possibility of long-established dictatorships being toppled became visible, and they knew that, especially after Libya, that the West was pumped up and ready to fight to the last drop of other people's blood. And this coincidence of interests has led to the current juncture.
Yeah, I mean, because Syria, they want to get rid of it. I mean, because let's look at Turkey. Turkey killed more Kurds than Saddam killed Kurds, but they don't say anything about Turkey. You could go to, Saudi Arabia, where it's an oppressive government, but they're in the pocket of the USA. You could go to Panama, Noriega. When he was working for the CIA, and he was smuggling drugs then, he was not a bad man and he was not a drug smuggler. But when he convened the Contadora meeting in Latin America, then suddenly he became a bad man because he wasn't doing the bidding of the CIA anymore. And we could also go
There's
back
no
to
doubt the cynicism of these people is bottomless, summed up in that, I think 60s, maybe 50s phrase, I think from Dulles, that Somoza, the Nicaraguan dictator, may be a son of a bitch, but he's our son of a bitch. And that's what really counts. That's what really counts, Lincoln. Aoife, let's squeeze in the 14th if we can.
Yes, you have Evans. Evans from Manhattan.
Hello.
Evans, welcome to the show.
How you doing, George? Listen,
yeah, good. Nice to hear from you. Go on.
When I listen to you, I get a little confused because I'm going to tell you why. Because you I don't know if you're feigning ignorance when certain people mention certain things, but to me, it's a little suspect how you're presenting your show. That's all I can say. That's my feeling.
Tell me.
Just a little suspect. It's almost like
no. You can't make an allegation like that.
Sides.
You can't make an allegation like that without giving us some evidence, Evans. That just becomes a smear.
Can't, but my feeling says you seem like you're on
that's
two
a
sides
smear.
of the
that's
coin.
just a smear, Evans.
Well,
and
let
me tell you that I never feign anything. I never feign anything, Evans.
Well, first of all, let me speak.
I'm telling you.
Let me speak, please.
No, because
you're a bully.
You have you have smeared me without producing a shred of evidence.
Be quiet for 1 second.
Evans, I'm going to cut you off now. I don't mind facing any allegation by anybody about what I do, what I say, the level of my ignorance. But what I'm not going to have is somebody making a smear like that and then saying that he can't actually provide any supportive evidence to back it up. I'm not having that. So let's take a final call if we can. Aoife, the 15th. Hello?
Yes, okay. I didn't get this person's name, but they're on the air.
Okay. Person unknown, you're on the air. And probably the last call, so go ahead.
I want you to know that we're going to have a big demonstration in New York led by the United Federation of Teachers, and all workers are going to be there. It's going to happen on Thursday at 4 o'clock starting on 32nd Street and 5th Avenue, and I'm hoping someone from the London demonstration will speak to us, too.
Well, I hope so, and with technology as it is, it's always possible to link up these demonstrations. There's a mass strike in Britain, 3 million workers, teachers, teaching assistants, health service workers, customs officials, immigration officials, people from all walks of life in the civil and public services have come out on strike because the government is stealing their pension and stealing their retirement years that they thought and planned were going to be years of enjoyment and relative economic security. And I'm sure you're facing the same problems there.
The same problem. It's just horrible. Yes.
Indeed. Well, look, thanks for that.
Thank you
it
for
was
your
an unknown call, but it was a very, very good one. I've enjoyed the show. I hope you have, and if you have, God willing, I'll be back at the same time in the same place next week. If you've enjoyed the show, bring another listener along with you next week. And Waterloo is quite close to here, unlike Pakistan to Syria.
Sunset time. Terry meets Julie, Waterloo Station.